Welcome back to our series on the 8 levels of Tzedaka. This is the third level, and that is where the giver knows to whom he's giving, but the receiver doesn't know from whom he's receiving. Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, the story is told, was harassed by a reporter. When I mean harassed, I meant that there were vicious reports in the newspaper made by this reporter against Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. And one day, this reporter was put in jail. He'd done something illegal, and he was put in jail. And he was embarrassed. He'd left his family in prison. He's not providing for them. But after a few years, he was released. But he'd never really seen his family in the meantime. And as you can imagine, he's so embarrassed. He was the main breadwinner. He hadn't provided for his family. He comes home after prison and he sees that his family are doing all right. They're doing okay financially. And he asks his wife, he says, what happened? What happened? How come you're doing all right? And the wife says, don't you know the rabbi? The rabbi helped us. He made inquiries. Turns out Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld had been the one who was providing financially for the family because they'd lost their breadwinner, even though this person, this reporter, had been writing the most horrible and vicious of articles against Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. The end of the story actually was that he went over to Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, he apologized, and he says, now I understand who you really are. Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld muttered under his breath, you think he really understands me now? Of course he doesn't. Either way, the point is that you're preserving the dignity of the receiver. The giver knows to whom is giving, but the receiver doesn't know. I have friends who used to help support people in Eretz Yisrael. People are learning Torah. They would put checks through their doors or under their doors or in their letterboxes. The giver knew to whom they were giving, but the receiver didn't. What's lastly an important point here, this is Rabbi Akiva Tatz makes this point, and he says, the mitzvah tzedakah doesn't mean that the person becomes your mitzvah object, like a nice lulav. So the person isn't your mitzvah object. What do I mean by that? The purpose of the mitzvah tzedakah and the purpose of Beinat and Lechavero, the mitzvahs that are Beinat Lechavero, which is why they're on the second luchos. It's not one big luach of 10, it's 2 luchos of 5. Is that apart from the element of emulating Hashem, there's another element with the mitzvahs of Beinat and Lechavero, that is to empathize for the person. There has to be that element of empathy, that element of care. Because if there isn't that element of care, then the mitzvah is going to be skewed in a certain way. Imagine you go visit someone in the hospital, Bikkur Cholim, and you travel, you traipse, you schlep to the hospital, and by the time you get there, they have the chutzpah to have recovered. If it's a mitzvah like lulav, you're going to think, oh my goodness, I didn't get a chance to do the mitzvah, horrible. But of course, the mitzvah is there to care about them. And therefore, it's great that they've recovered. It's great that they're out of hospital. The third level, again, is the giver knows to whom they're giving. The receiver doesn't know from whom they're receiving. That is maintaining their dignity.